friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I know it's been a while since I've done a video. It's been a minute. Maybe I'll talk about it. Should I vlog or do something? But I'm okay, more or less, now. But since I am doing okay, let me adjust this lighting here, more or less now, I thought I'd come up here and talk about a book that I had recently read and is actually part of my 5-star predictions that I am doing for 2024. If you guys don't know, I made a list of books, both backlist and new releases, that are new books that I would like to read, or new to me books that I would like to read and see if I know my tastes and whether or not they're going to be a 5-star prediction. So I will leave that video link down for you guys if you guys want to see what books I'm planning on reading, to see if I know my own taste. But last year I did it with vlogs, and I just found that I was rushing myself through the books a lot of the time because I had to fit 2 books into a single vlog, or if I wasn't feeling like vlogging, then I just didn't do it. So I'm doing reviews this year. But this one, the first book of the year, is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. This is Hafsa Faizal's sophomore duology. I don't know if A Tempest of Tea is going to be a duology or a larger part of a series, but right now I believe, last I heard, it was going to be another duology. Now this book answers a question you guys may have never thought about thinking of, or have ever wondered in depth, and that is what happens when a ragtag group of people come together, have their own motivations to doing this heist, and then proceed to do a heist. So if you've ever wondered what a group looks like that is probably not meant to work well together but has to work well together because they don't have a choice, but would also be willing to stab each other in the back to fulfill their own goal, this is probably the book for you. So let's just kind of jump right into it. So A Tempest of Tea is, like I said, Hafsa Faizal's second duology series. It's set in the same world as We Hunt the Flame, but it's in a separate world. It's kind of like being comped as like Peaky Blinders meets Six of Crows with vampires. It's supposed to be like a weird Arthurian retelling. Arthi Casimir has a magical gun named Calibor that only she is able to really wield, and she and her adopted brother Jin, I don't know why my brain went to the drink and not the person. It's fine. But Jin the two of them have been running this tea house called the Spindrift, where they have customers come in and out of this kind of like underbelly of this city. And during the night, Spindrift turns into a blood house for vampires to come in and indulge in their, Now, Spindrift is put under kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? Despair? No. Desperate? No. Destroy? No. Spindrift is now kind of at a crossroads where it could get sold and purchased by someone else or torn down completely. The two desperate siblings now pull together a very ragtag band of people, people that they don't normally work with / don't want to work with, to pull off a heist to find some very incriminating evidence to bring down the government and maybe be able to blackmail them into giving them Spindrift back. This is young adult, but trigger warnings for this one. There's a lot of violence, a lot of blood, a lot of gore. There are guns involved, so lots of gun violence as well. There is like parental death and death in a fire. Colonization is a big topic in this novel, so it's also in there, and it is talked about quite a lot. I don't know if it's necessarily a trigger warning, but something in there. So my first thoughts about this book, specifically when I first heard about it, is all I needed to know were like 3 things, I think. Vampires. Heist. Yeah, 3 things. And that is, it's a book written by Hafsa Faizal. It has a heist in it, and there are vampires. If you guys if you've been following me on this channel for a hot minute, you know that I love vampires. I will never not love a vampire book. That's a lie. I've disliked, well, Twilight doesn't count because it's just nostalgia, but I've disliked 1 vampire book in my history of having read vampiric books as a young adult. So it's no mystery that when Hafsa Faizal announced a vampire book, I jumped on the chance. With that being said, I really didn't know what to expect. I had gone into this thinking that it was going to be completely separate from We Hunt the Flame, but there is a direct reference made to Arawiya, which is the Sands of Arawiya, that duology. So it's a very exciting thing to find out. But I was very intrigued by this duology. It involves tea, there are vampires, there's a heist going on. It's a ragtag group of misfits, and I was all for it. Like, I drove to Barnes & Noble the day of the release and purchased the book. Moving on to kind of my thoughts, if you've been following me on the channel for a minute, you know I kind of format my reviews into like 2 separate categories, I guess, or I guess 3 different categories with the synopsis, the trigger warnings, my thoughts, and then the things I liked, things I didn't like, and my overall thoughts and rating. I decided to spice things up a little bit and see if I like this format a little bit, and I'm just going to be talking about big points. So I'm going to be talking about, I guess, like, I can tell you guys in order of what I'm going to be talking about. It might not always be in this order every review, but, or at least until I figure out what I like to involve in it. But just so you know what's going to be in this video, I'm going to be talking about the writing, the pacing, which are 2 different things. The world building, themes. Should a book have any prevalent themes? I would say this book, since it's the first one, it's a lot of setup. So themes aren't taking like the front seat. It took a very big back seat, so I won't be discussing themes in this video for this review. But then the characters, and then we'll get into my overall thoughts and rating. But let's start off with the first topic, and that is writing. So Hafsa Faizal just has this way with words that always really, what's the word I'm looking for? Just pulls me in right away. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's very flowery, but it definitely is descriptive. It's descriptive in the sense that I can really put myself in the scene, and it's really easy to picture things, but it's not overly flowery where it's like too hard to really precisely see what's happening in the book, or I guess too overdone. It's not trying too hard. It's not too purple prose in a way that it wasn't intentionally supposed to be purple prose. It's very descriptive, very it's like very simple, but then also descriptive at the same time. I think that when Hafsa Faizal tends to write novels, or when she writes novels, she really takes into consideration the kinds of words she uses and how many words she uses, and it comes through a lot in the writing, because I don't feel like there was ever like a line or a vibe, I guess, that the words had created that made me think that this could have been not included or written a different way, or that it was not pertinent to the book itself and what it was going to tell me. So I was very interested. So I'm not interested, but I was very happy with how Hafsa wrote the sequel. The pacing of the book, I'm gonna let y'all know, it's very slow. This book is not very plot driven, it's very character driven, I would say. We get to spend a lot of time in the characters' heads, in their thoughts and their, like, how they're processing the world as it's falling apart around them. So it definitely is a lot more character driven, and therefore it's slower. It is also the first book in a, I'm assuming, duology. I don't know, it could be a trilogy and I'm getting my information wrong, but as of right now, Therese says it's a duology. If Hafsa is announced later on that it's more, then I can eat a shoe, but that's not the case. I would say the pacing of this book is a little bit more akin to like a mystery. There's a lot of build up in the beginning. It's very slow paced. Even I think the main goal of the book that they were trying to do was still kind of slower in its pace, which isn't a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. But it definitely was slower, it built up more, and then probably like the last third of the book was where everything started unraveling and things started moving a lot faster, and it became like not blurry in a bad way, but blurry in the sense that so much was just happening all at once that you were just like trying to process everything, and it felt like a blur of a read, but in a good way. Like, it was very purposeful, this blurring of the scenes and the words, especially considering the characters were also kind of going through it and they were just like processing it in their own way, and it wasn't working very well. So while I didn't hate the pacing, I think the pacing was one of the harder things for me to get through. It wasn't like because it was bad or I had anticipated like a super fast paced read, because obviously it's the first book, it's going to be setting things up, so pacing has to be kind of slow. It's in a fantastical setting that not a lot of people understand, so pacing has to be kind of like slower. But I was like just coming on the heels of a reading slump, so pacing was just not my best friend in this one. I really just wanted things to pick up, but I understood that there was a reason why it was slower and that I would have to just kind of slow my roll and just wait for things to pick up on its own. But it definitely was like a little bit of a struggle in the beginning when I was just like, can we get to the point? I'm in a reading slump. I need this book to make it go away. In terms of world building, I feel like the setting feels familiar. It's not the biggest strength of the book in terms of like how We Hunt the Flame was, if you're expecting very similar, like denser world building where the world is definitely part of the narrative and part of the plot. I think because it is supposed to resemble kind of Six of Crows and Peaky Blinders, I think Hafsa definitely leaned into that comp with the sense that the world, like the setting and the locations weren't as like descriptive or as well defined, because people were gonna equate Peaky Blinders and Six of Crows with a very deep underbelly and just like piece together the setting itself. So it definitely wasn't the strongest point in the book, this world building aspect. I also think that the magic system also took a little bit of a backseat to what else was going on, because it wasn't very magic focused. The most magical thing you probably had in this book was Arthie's gun Calibor, which is a transformational gun and very reminiscent of like Arthur's, what is Arthur's sword called? Excalibur. There we go. I think the setting and the magic system definitely took a backseat in this book, and I'm interested to see how it'll change in the sequel, just because it's there, but it's not the strongest piece of this book. I wouldn't say. Like I said in the beginning, it is set in the same world as We Hunt the Flame. It's not a big spoiler. It's mentioned probably like in the first 5 or so chapters of the book. I would say it's like, I wouldn't say it's too far into the future. I'd say probably maximum 10 years, considering the characters, like how the character was putting it together. Minimum maybe 2 to 5 years. But it wasn't that big of a gap to where what happened to Nasir and Saphira and We Hunt the Flame was definitely like a bit more of like a fairy tale. Like it was like long history and not really much to be learned. They're talking about it as if it was pretty recent, so I'm gonna assume probably within like the last decade this was a thing. The vampire lore in this like world was also not very special. It wasn't something to write home about specifically. It's very basic for what you know about vampires. They like blood. They can't go out into the world during the daytime. They have to find other activities to fill the void during the day when the sun is out. They're out during the night. They have a high functioning society. They're immortal. They don't age. There is a bit of a plot twist, I will say, toward the end in regards to the vampiric lore, but again, it wasn't like, I kind of saw it coming, and I think it's just because I took my time with the book, because I was in a reading slump and I kind of had to kind of follow the pace of the book with it. But it was shocking, but it wasn't shocking to me because of how it was set up or implied, I'd say. So if you're looking for something that like revolutionized another form of like vampiric attributes or vampiric lore, probably will not do anything for you. Not in a bad way. I think a lot of the things Hafsa definitely did go a little bit simplistic with, like in terms of the world's building, definitely a little simpler than her previous works, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm very interested to see how it'll continue on in the next book and the probably following books, now that I'm doubting myself if it's a duology or a series, because since we lacked so much setup for the world, that means that as the characters learn about the world and the magic system around them, so will we as readers, and it'll be, I think, a very interesting kind of give and take there. Like I said, in the pacing section of this book, the characters were definitely the highlight of the book. It's a very character-driven book, which is why it's a lot slower. We spend a lot of time in these characters' heads learning about what makes them tick, what their values are, how they were raised, what they went through as children, how that defined them now as young adults. So they're definitely more of the highlight of this book, and if you're a fan of like a lot more character driven and character heavy books, I would highly recommend this one to you guys, just because it is, I think, another thing that Hafsa definitely has like a talent for is creating really good characters. I really loved reading in Arthie's head and seeing her stubbornness and her like drive to protect Spindrift. I love seeing Jin's playfulness and seeing him kind of bounce off the other characters and be kind of like, not even comedic, I would say, but definitely a lighter aspect of this very dark environment that they're in. And then Flick, who is a newcomer to this like very deep-seated underbelly, but has her own dark side and has her own motivations. And I really, really resonated with Flick. I understood her like need for approval from her mother and the kind of things that she would do and the people that she would betray to really like gain her mother's affection again and gain that like attention that she received from her mother, and just feel like that will bring her together and that'll make things better. And I like seeing her character progression as she kind of like unravels this idea of what family looks like to her and what loyalty actually looks like. So it's very interesting to see her character progression, and I had a lot of fun in her head. I think my favorite what do you call it? My favorite point of view was Flick's point of view, because I could relate to it so much, having wanting that parental approval and you're just unsure of how to get it or how to keep it. It's very little too personal for me. I did really enjoy seeing their relationships, both platonic and romantic, playing out and like kind of develop. I do wish that we had, like, my favorite thing about heist movies and like, or heist stories and like ragtag teams getting together is seeing the relationships build. So I kind of did wish that we didn't have a huge romantic factor in this one specifically, just to kind of strengthen those platonic relationships and maybe build up to like a slower burn of a romance. But I did enjoy them nonetheless. I like angst. I like things that make me like kick my legs up in the air and squeal a little bit. So it was still fun for me to read, but I definitely do wish that it had taken a little bit more of a backseat, and I would have gotten to see Flick and Arthur develop a relationship and see maybe Mateo kind of rise a little bit more as a character, because he was definitely more of a very, very side character in this novel. Another thing that I really did struggle with this is like definitely user error, because this book, it literally tells you in the synopsis that this team is not a cohesive unit. They have not been working for the better part of a decade and know each other's like flaws and their distractions and their weak points when they're fighting and all this and what they need to prepare themselves. It was very obvious from the synopsis that this is going to be a very jagged and sharp kind of edge team. They don't fully trust each other. They just trust each other because they have to. And I think to me, I struggled with it a little bit because my brain, I wasn't trying to like place them in Six of Crows, where it's a very cohesive unit and very like they like trust each other with their lives. I like knew what was happening, but my brain was still trying to place, I think, kind of not the full like Six of Crows relationship, but I guess that banter. I love characters with good witty banter. If you haven't noticed, one of my favorite series is Cassandra Clare. I loved where is it? Where's another one? Like I just love, I can't find the series right now, it's fine, but I just love witty banter. I love dynamics that are like really banter heavy. It's just my favorite thing in the world, and I can really understand a dynamic through banter. So I think that was just where I was struggling with, was that my brain wanted the banter that came with a developed cast of characters who have known each other for so long, but it also fought with the fact that they're not developed, and that's okay, and I don't have a choice but to stick with it. So that was my biggest issue, but I really did enjoy seeing this team come together and like really put their efforts together to see what they can accomplish, even as messed up and jagged as they were as a team and mismatched. I think that seeing them come together was very satisfying for me, and seeing how like willing they were to protect each other and like help each other even despite not having known each other for so long was a very nice touch, and I really enjoyed seeing that form, and I'm really intrigued to see what kind of dynamics we'll see develop even further in the sequel. But yeah, it was definitely user error on my end, because my brain was like, I just need banter. I am so starved of banter. And it was like, I don't like this because of banter. And my brain, the other more logical part of my brain was like, but they're not developed enough to have banter. And the other side was like, no, I want the banter. I don't care. Find me banter. And it like clung to the bits where Mateo and Jin were being their like very flirtatious and very like cheeky selves, where I was like, yes, banter. Another thing I wanted from the characters was what happened to the cat. The cat was seen like in the very like last few scenes, and then I didn't hear about it again. Where's the cat? That's all I care about right now, Hafsa Faizal. If you see this, I need to see a mention of the cat. Overall, I really did enjoy this book. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely a bit on the looser end. Like if I think about this book too much, I might knock it down to a 4.75 or a 4.5. So I have not been trying not to think of and sit on it too much. But I don't know. We'll see how this changes, and we'll see my wrap up at the end of the year or the start of next year. I'm very interested to see the sequel and see how that all develops and plans out. I think she has a really good set foundation for probably a really good tight-knit group, which is why my brain is like, maybe it's going to be more than a duology. Because as of right now, they're still very separate pieces, and I would like to see this group become finally cohesive before the series ends. And I want to know what happened to the cat. That's all I want to know. What happened to the cat? The cat is important to me. The cat is my lifeline. The cat made everything. I also would highly recommend this to everyone who is a fan of Hafsa Faizal. I think you will enjoy it. Hafsa Faizal, again, is just a really good storyteller, and I really enjoy reading what she has written so far. Like, it is very different. Like, I think it's a very, like stark difference between We Hunt the Flame, which is a lot more fantasy focused and a lot more world building focused, versus this which is more character driven. But I think she is just good at what she does, and I enjoyed it. And also there's vampires, so if you like vampires and Hafsa Faizal, you'll probably like this book too. So I highly recommend it if you have not picked it up yet. It just came out like a month ago, so you have time. We're only just in March. You have another 9 months to read it. But that is it for my video for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll go ahead and do more reviews. I do like doing review videos, but I need to like reformat how I do my review videos, because I feel like they've been feeling a little stiff recently. So hopefully if you like this format, let me know. If you like the older format, let me know. If you have a format you want to recommend to me that you really like from another YouTuber, whether it's like reviewing video games or books or movies or TV shows, let me know. I like to do my research and like find a cohesive little thing that I like to do. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.